Okay, so we're going to do a little work today. We need the smushy ball to kind of combine the diaphragm, the movement of the diaphragm, the movement of the low back, and the engagement of the glutes. So it's not usually like a connection that we kind of look for, but I've been working lately with some people who have some challenges with their low back, which, of course, there's lots of people out there who have challenges with their low back. But one of the things that I've been noticing is a relationship to um, the glutes. Okay, so your strong glutes, big muscles in your butt, they extend your leg. So they contribute to hip extension, bringing your leg back, right? So that extension of the hip joint instead of flexion of the hip joint. And a lot of times, that action comes when it may not always look like that. For instance, when you pick something up off the ground and you bend over and you're in hip flexion when you bend over to pick something up, and then you go to stand up with whatever the thing is that you're holding. So even though that action of standing up doesn't feel like hip extension because we're just going from a deep flexion to neutral, it's using the extensor muscles to do that action, to stand us upright from when we're in deep flexion to a neutral. So you don't always have to think of the glutes as kind of extending your leg back behind you, but just getting you out of deep flexion. And when we do this when we walk. Every step we do this, especially when we hike. If you're pushing yourself up onto a step, going uphill, we're using those glutes as well as when we go downhill. So think of brakes, like putting brakes on. So the glutes are really used for a lot of things. They're such big prime movers. They're strong and they're big and they're very capable of doing a lot of heavy lifting loads, and just moving our body around as well. So when they are not turning on well, when they're sleepy, a lot of times our low back kicks into gear to try to support what the glutes should be doing. And the QL, the quadratus lumborum, the deep low back muscle, is not really meant for this job. It's a stabilizer. It definitely assists with, when you pick up the box and stand up, that extension, it definitely assists with extension, but the primary movers should be the glutes. So when the glutes are sleepy, the low back can do extra work. And then we have this front left right thing going on too, because there's a muscle on either side of our spine and on either side of our glutes. So sometimes we can decide that we want to use our right side more than our left side, or vice versa, depending on the whole kinesthetic chain. If you have something wrong with your big toe, it's going to show up somewhere else in your body. If you have something wrong with your neck, it's going to show up somewhere else in your body. So, my hope today is to kind of do some work around kind of facilitating awareness, not just strengthen the glutes, but a sense of, are they turning on? Are you aware that they're turning on? Are they activating when you want them to, so that you don't have to rely on those smaller stabilizing muscles to do heavy loads? And then how does breathing impact all of this? What happens when we breathe to help us along the way? Okay, so let's go ahead and find a comfortable seat. And so as you sit up straight and tall, think about maybe it's current, maybe you have something going on with your low back right now. Maybe you have something going on with one of your glutes right now, or kind of, at your sit bones where the glutes tend to aggravate us sometimes. So whatever's happening in your body, and maybe you feel perfectly well, and that's wonderful. So let's just start by being aware of our seat. So when you first notice your seat, do you lean your weight into one side a little bit more than the other? And this could have something to do with the way you cross your legs. So if you do sense that you're leaning into one sit bone or one side of your glutes more than the other, what can you do to balance things out? And if you struggle, maybe try switching the cross of your legs. And you might have a very unfamiliar new sensation going on if you do that. So maneuver yourself around to you really sense, and you can even drop a little bit of weight into one side and drop a little weight into the other side, and maybe a little bit forward and a little bit backwards. So you just kind of sense not just the pelvic alignment and where your bones are, but notice, the flesh of your body too. Is there weight moving into one side more than the other? And then when you get yourself to feel as close to balanced as you can, of course, that's always, hard to feel symmetrical. So don't worry too much about it, but get to where you feel as comfortably balanced as you can. And then start to bring your awareness to the low back. Okay. And think 360. So think right through to your core, to your sides, but this whole region of the lower torso. And how are things feeling? Do you feel strained at all? Is there tension on one side and not on the other? Do you feel yourself overusing these muscles in any way? Can your core feel connected to your low back? Is there a cylinder sensation where the center low body is not just one-sided, but multi-dimensional? And then as you feel this multi-dimensionality, start to invite the breath and notice the relationship of the breath and how the diaphragm moves and just the feeling of your organs being displaced by your breathing and how this makes your low back and the core cylinder feel. What changes, what shapes change, what strain patterns change as you breathe in and you breathe out. So there's nothing really to do here, but to just notice. So just pay attention to how your body tends to be. Try to have more curiosity than judgment. And just keep the open mind, the awareness growing. And notice also if it's difficult to sense any area that we're working with. Is there anything kind of absent or quiet or stuck? And as we've been sitting now for a bit, is there any pattern of strain arriving in your back or in your hips or in your knees? Or, just notice, where does your support system break down first? Is your posture losing its alignment at all? Not only noticing where strain arrives first, or where, kind of the breakdown in your structural support happens, but notice if you tend to slump, if you don't kind of pay attention and insist on the long spine, if the minute you kind of move your attention away, do you slump at all? Do you round your shoulders? Do you roll onto your sacrum a little bit more? Do you jut your head forward? Notice what happens to you. Paying attention to the patterns that arrive when we feel fatigue is a really beautiful place to kind of notice yourself. Because this will show you where some, shoring up could happen, where you have maybe a couple of missing links. Your missing link could be that you just stop breathing well when you lose sight of the breath. All right, invite the movement of the belly, the movement of the ribs. Invite the breath in. When you're ready, bring your hands to your heart and offer an intention here. And then we'll release the hands and let's find our way onto our back. All right, so as you come onto your spine, pay attention and notice what might just have eased up the moment you get out of the position that you're in and you lie down. Is notice right away what part of your body says ah. Okay, where is there release where there might have just been strain? And then we'll stretch our arms overhead and find some nice extension and openness. So reaching the right side, reaching the left side, and just enjoy. Try to let the pelvis go very much offline. So hike one hip up as high as you can get it, and then hike the other hip up as high as you can get it. And just notice that left-right engagement of the QL as you do this. Right. And then put your feet on the ground and just let your low back soften into the ground. Hands on your low belly and just breathe. Let your breath, intend your breath to go deep. It's not, you don't have to push the belly into your hands, but see if you can just coax and invite some movement into the low belly as you breathe. And as your hands kind of help you become aware of how the breath and the lower torso relate with each other, see if you can not only feel the belly, but also feel the low back. What's happening on the back side and the front side and the side side. So just pay attention to that whole core cylinder, the low torso. As you breathe in, as you breathe out, what changes shape, what happens? And then let's stretch out to a star. Let's roll your wrists around and roll your ankles around and wiggle your fingers and your toes. Just let the edges of your body kind of find some movement. And then draw the knees into the chest. Pick up your head, round the spine a little bit. And one more time, expanding open, stretching, letting the back arc a little bit, and then exhale, rounding. And put your head down, keep your knees into your chest, and just rock a little bit, swaying from side to side. And pay attention to the low back, just as you kind of bear weight into one side and then the other. And we'll stretch our right knee into our chest, left leg long on the ground. Move around in your ankles and your feet again. And feel that nice, good compression of the knee in toward your chest. Cross the right knee over to the left and twist open and expand here. And notice again the torso, not just the spine, but the whole torso and its mobility as you twist. Take a deep breath and notice where the breath goes. And then come back to center. Bring that knee into your chest, pick up your head, and then we'll switch sides. Left knee in, head down. Move around in your feet again. Wiggle your toes, get some movement. And then we'll cross the left knee over to the right and stretch open to a twist on this side. Notice as you breathe what changes shape on the big inhale and the big exhale. And then come back to center, left knee in, give it a good squeeze, pick up your head, and then relax your head back down. Two knees into your chest. Let's open the knees away from each other. Do some circles with each knee so you just get some range of motion in the hip joints. And then we'll grab on either behind your knees or the bottom of your feet for a happy baby. And let's pay attention to that low back now. So rock a little bit, swaying left and right. See if you can just get some of those deep low back muscles to open up a little bit. Let your head rest. All right. Feet down onto the ground, arms out to the side. Windshield wiper your knees and turn your head in opposition. Just a nice, easy movement pattern. Doesn't have to be extreme. Just letting the low back open up just a little bit here. All right, ground yourself. Grab onto your little smushy ball, and we're going to put it underneath the pelvis, so right under your sacrum. And now we often do this with the block, but just notice the difference when you have something a little more wobbly underneath you. And just play for a moment. So just kind of roll around, let your pelvis kind of fall off one side of the ball and fall off the other side of the ball. Maybe you fall, your tail, maybe your low back falls. Just kind of roll around on that ball and just let the sensory awareness of your low back and your pelvis and your pelvic floor and your deep low belly just kind of wake up some places. All right, and then after a little bit of that wobbling about, see if you can get steady again and ground through the four corners of your feet, each foot, so that you feel a sense of stability. And then gently, not hard, but gently have your arms find the ground as well. So there's some contact, some grounding with your arms and your feet so that your pelvis has a little less work to do to balance itself on the ball. And then just breathe here for a moment. And notice if there's a slight wobble in the ball. See if you can, or on the ball, see if you can pay attention to stabilizing yourself with a little work through the core, a little work through the feet, a little work through the arms. Full breath in, full breath away. Notice the sacrum, become aware of your low back. Nice and quiet, no movement on the ball. Now scan your body and see if there's tension anywhere to hold that stability. Are your shoulders or neck tense? Is your head grounding too hard? Just see if there's any place overdoing to keep the stability of your pelvis on that ball. All right. And we'll come back to this in a while, but let's stretch open to a start. And then bring your knees into your chest and we'll roll over onto our side. And find yourself coming onto all fours. And let's enjoy some cat-cows. To me, cat-cows are just such a beautiful way of opening up the diaphragm, opening up the low back, even the glutes. Certainly, there's a lot of mobility through the whole spine. See if you can sense into some of those ancillary places too, not just the vertebrae, but the rib cage and the low back, and just kind of what spaciousness you can find while deep breathing. All right, and then any kind of movement you want to do, just let your body warm up in the way it wants to warm up. Everybody's got a little different thing going on. Make sure your breath is staying connected to what you're doing. And then find a flat back. And let's just wag our tail left and right. Sense into your low back here. And now hike your right hip up toward your shoulder and turn and look at that right hip. So you're compressing a little bit in that right side of your low back. And then we'll switch. Hike the left hip up toward your left shoulder and just feel a little compression on that side. And sometimes the engagement can feel just as good as the release. So let's go ahead and one more time, other side. And then one more time to the left. All right, and then stretch back toward the child's pose and let the breath travel through your body, all the way down to your sacrum. Walk the hands over to one side or the other so you feel that length through the ribs. And even in the QL, see if you can reach the sit bone away from the shoulder. Over to the other side. Find some length here. And then come back to center. Back onto all fours. Reaching one arm up in the air. Let's twist. Dropping that shoulder down. Release any tension through your neck. And then we'll reach that arm back up in the air. Feel that extension. Bring that hand down onto the ground. We'll switch sides, arm up. Exhale, arm under. Twisting to the side, enjoying the breath. And then reach that arm back up in the air. Hand to the sky. And then bring that hand down onto the ground. Curl your toes under and find your way to a dog pose. Take a little time. Feel some movement. Dropping one heel down and then the other heel down. Just opening up through your ankles, through your feet, all the way up through to your sit bones. And let your glutes start to have some extension now. So we're noticing the relationship between your glutes and your hamstrings. And it may feel more like a hamstring stretch than a glute stretch, and that's okay. Just know they're both stretching. Move a little bit. Try not to be stuck in your pose just yet. Okay. Then we'll walk our feet forward and come to Uttanasana. Forward fold. Relax. Open up those hamstrings again. Inhale for a halfway lift, extending through the spine. Exhale. Melting to fold. Release your head. One more time, a halfway lift. Sit bones high. Then exhale and fold forward. And we'll stay here in this stretch for just a moment. Ground the four corners of your feet. Feel your whole back line open up. You might even want to take your hands to the base of the skull. A halfway lift, one more time. Sit bones get high. Let's pedal your feet while you're here. So let your hips move. Move one hip back as the other moves forward when that knee bends. Just feel that sense of pelvic movement, low back movement, kind of stretching one side of the glutes and hamstrings and then the other. And remember that your low back and your glutes are part of that entire posterior chain that goes all the way to your feet, all the way to the eyebrows, up the back body, over the head. All right, push through your feet. Let's rise up, bring the arms up to the sky. Feel that extension, open up. Let's cactus open our chest and squeeze through the back body. Feel the shoulder blades hug onto each other. And then arms up one more time. Imagine you're pulling yourself up on a bar. Squeeze the back body, shoulder blades engaging. Feel the strength that you have back there in your body. One more time, arms up. Give yourself a nice good squeeze as you imagine pulling yourself up on a bar. So we're getting some engagement back there. Rising through the sky again. Exhale and fold forward. A halfway lift. Extend through the spine. Exhale. Come back down, dog pose, walk the feet back, feel that extension. Notice how the mobility practices of moving are really helping you open up. Feel free to pedal your feet here again, bending one knee at a time if you'd like. Come forward into a plank, ground yourself, drop your shoulders away from the ears, feel the earth, push it away. All right, we'll put our knees down onto the ground, find the ground. Roll the shoulders a few times, so we're just mobilizing those shoulders. Inhale, rise up for a cobra. Exhale, and lower back down. So engage the back body, open up the front body, rising again. Feel the strength behind you, glutes are engaged, legs are engaged. Relax to come back down. Bring your arms out in front of you, wide hands, palms onto the ground, and rise up. Now extend your legs. So feel the hip flexors lengthen, the torso lengthen, feeling some engagement in the back of your body. And then relax and melt. Come up onto all fours and move around in your spine. Wag your tail. Do any kind of movement that releases any tension you might be feeling. All right, stay on all fours. You can always put your fists on the ground or forearms on blocks if your wrists are troubled. We'll take our right leg straight back behind you, and let's pulse a few times here. So we're just noticing the glutes turning on. Now, when we do one-legged glute work, it's different than like lifting into a bridge with both sides doing the same thing. So pay attention to how your body has to accommodate when your legs are in different positions. Find your core, and then we'll reach the left arm out in front of you and feel that line across your back from your left shoulder through to your right low back and right glutes and right hamstring. Big breath in, exhale underneath you. Inhale, bring it out again. Exhale, drawing in. One more time. Extending long. Exhale, drawing in. Reaching out, and we'll put that hand down, knee down, and maybe sway a little bit. You can even come off your hands and shake them before we do the second side. So notice when we now switch and bring the left leg in the air and pulse it a few times, what you're sensing. Is this a more comfortable, familiar, strong pattern in your body or less so? Do you have dominance on one side versus the other that you can notice? Let's take the right arm out in front of you now. Engage through your core to help support. Breathing. Can you find that line from your right shoulder to your left low back? Cross the hemispheres, all the way to your glutes and your hamstring. A deep breath in. Exhale, draw it in. Inhale, reaching out. Exhale, draw it under. So now your QL is going to be engaged, but the glutes should be your big mover here. So notice your glutes. And then after you've done 3, we'll go ahead and stretch that arm out. Hand and knee come down onto the ground. Curl your toes under and lift to a dog. A big breath here. Feel the fullness of the pose now, maybe a little less moving. Ground yourself, yield, and then push through your body so that you have, or push into the ground so you have that length in your body. Bend your knees a little bit and notice what happens to your low back. Do you have better angles with your knees bent? So sometimes if our hamstrings are tight or our glutes are tight and we straighten our legs, all we end up doing is putting pressure on the low back. So a little softness in the knees. Notice if the length of the spine is a little more available to you. Come forward into a plank. Lower yourself down one more time. Arms out in front of you, thumbs up. Similar to the bird dog we just did, Let's take our right leg up in the air and our left arm up in the air and find that cross line through your body again. Engaging the glutes. And then release to come down. Switching sides. Engage this pattern. Which side is more of a pattern for you? Can you tell? And release one more time. Right leg, left arm. And then release. Right arm, left leg. And then release. Put your head on your hands, pick up your feet, and just rock them left and right. Are you starting to notice any patterns in your body? Come up onto all fours, wiggle around in your spine. And then we'll lift to a dog. Extending through your body here. Let's lift our right leg up in the air and stack it open. So you just stretch through your leg here. Open up through the front of the pelvis. Square things up again, put that foot down. Switch sides, left leg. Can you feel the asymmetry of doing your legs in different positions? And then stack open and feel the stretch here. All right, square the pelvis. Put that foot down. Are you paying attention to any dominance that you feel left or right? Walk your feet forward. Come to Uttanasana. Inhale for a halfway lift. Melt again. Push through your feet, rising up. Bring the arms to the sky. And trace down. Notice if your body's feeling better, if you're warming up well, feeling good. Let's bring our legs together if you'd like. We're going to do chair pose twice, once with our feet close, and then we'll take it with a block between our thighs. So as you come down into this pose, with your ankles together, you can always have them wider if you don't like ankles together. Let's find the posture, reach your arms up, and just notice if you tend to lean into one foot versus leaning into the other foot. Like, where are your tendencies? See if you can weight bear evenly. Push through the ground as if you want to stand, but you're not going to stand. And notice how much aliveness your glutes have. And pay attention to this with our legs together. We're going to do it again with our feet apart and see what the difference is. So notice what aspect of your glutes are easy to kick on, what you have to coax. And then come on up onto your tippy toes. Find your balance, find your breath. And then lower your heels back down. We'll start with the block and then we'll take the block away. So block between your thighs, high up toward your pelvis, narrow width of the block, feet hip width apart. Look at your feet, make sure they're feeling really good and grounded, and we'll come down to a chair pose with the block. Reach your arms up overhead and just notice, is your low back taking a lot of burden? Can you give a little more to the glutes? Push your heels into the ground. Turn on the back body a little bit more. See if you can imagine trying to stand up, like you want to push yourself upright, but you're not going anywhere, to take a little bit less effort into your back and a little more effort into the legs. Reach down, stay in the pose, remove the block, and just notice how the pose feels with no support between your legs. Notice if your glutes are easier to turn on wide apart or harder. And then we'll come up again, up onto your tippy toes. Find your breath. And then lower your heels back down. Find neutral and breathe. Notice the cylinder of your low torso. Expand through the breath. Let the breath help your low back relax a little bit. Okay. Then we'll inhale, rising on up. Exhale, floating forward. Notice if your low back feels different.
from that chair pose? Did you put any extra burden there that you maybe could figure out next time? Stretch open to a half lift, and then exhale and relax. Step your left foot back, come to a lunge on this side. Find your ground, hands on blocks if you like that. And then we'll start to move, bending and straightening through the front leg. Feeling your way into some movement. All right, and ground yourself. Feel your roots before you rise up. Start to feel that front heel pressing into the ground. Turn those glutes on. See if you can notice if they weren't turned on. So maybe release the heel a little bit and notice how the glutes can hang out here and be quite lazy without engaging. And then repress into the foot to find those glutes. Inhale, rise up, crescent lunge. Arms upward to the sky. Maybe look up, challenge your balance, keep pressing that front heel into the ground. Engage your back glutes as well. So just feel the engagement. Even though your glutes are doing different things, can you feel them work instead of to have a moment and release the glutes? And notice you can hang out in this pose without having to engage too much. And where do you think that pressure is going to go? Somewhere that isn't necessary. So let's engage the big, strong muscles. Engage your legs, engage your glutes. And then we'll release the hands, back foot comes forward, fold. A halfway lift, opening up through your spine. And we'll step back with the other leg. Now our left is in front, grounding yourself in your lunge. Open up those hip flexors. And then we'll bend and straighten here. Finding your breath. And then ground through your legs. Feel your roots. Steady yourself. Find your way up, crescent lunge. Arms coming up to the sky. Find that full expression through your torso. And let's remember what it feels like to turn both sides of your glutes on. They're different, but let both engage. Press the front foot, stretch through your back heel, engage your glutes. Open up through your spine. Maybe relax that for a minute so you can just notice what happens when your glutes get lazy. Okay, for when I do that, I feel it more in my quad and my low back. I'm not sure where you feel it. And then engage your glutes again. Share the burden with the big, strong muscles. All right, and then we'll release our hands down onto the ground. Step back. Dog pose again. Come forward into a plank. Find the ground all the way to the floor. Take your arms down at your sides. Lift up, keep your hands rooting into the ground a little bit, and lift up your legs, hip width apart with your legs. Lift up your legs. Notice what turns on. Lift your chest. Keep your hands on the ground. And then relax. Pick up your feet and windshield wiper your knees. Okay, put your hands underneath your head. Take your legs a little wider and maybe turn your toes out. So we just get a little bit different feeling of what our glutes are capable of. And now lift your legs again. Finding your breath. Notice if your low back takes over for your glutes. They should be sharing with your glutes being the prime movers. All right, and then relax. Pick up your feet again, put your knees back to neutral, and windshield wiper your knees. All right. Come over onto your back. We'll need a block. Okay. Start out, we're going to do a few bridges here. Start out with your feet. Notice your feet. Ground the full four corners of your feet. Find your breath. Relax your shoulders into the ground, and we'll lift up into a bridge pose. Okay. Climb up onto the tops of your shoulders. We're going to do a few different things here. So first, we'll just find a normal bridge and see what it feels like to pull your heels toward your shoulders. Turn on your glutes. Root into the index finger bounds, the big toe mounds. Okay. See what it feels like to not lose any part of your feet. And then we'll release. Now you should notice by now in a lot of these poses, windshield wiper your knees, that the low back and the glutes work together for so many of our actions. But let's see if we can let the driver be the glutes and the backseat driver be the QL. Okay, so we're not letting the QL do the driving, we're letting the glutes do the driving. We're going to do some pulses while we're up here in a bridge. So lift up again, ground through your feet, find your pose, and then little baby lifts. So a few inches of release and lift, and release and lift. So there's just that kind of turning on of the glutes that you can maybe feel a little bit better when you're pulsing. Now notice as you do a few rounds of this, if one side is more aware, stronger, capable, turns on quicker, pay attention to what your patterns are. And then hold. And then we'll lower the pelvis back down. Take your feet a little wider, knock your knees, hands on the belly, and just relax and breathe. Using your glutes should feel good. It should be like, oh yay, I like these muscles because they're strong. Your glutes are they're designed for bearing weight and helping you deeply. So the more we can get comfortable with using them, it should feel good. It should feel like, oh yay, I'm using the proper muscles to support myself. Now this is going to be a little bit more challenging. We're going to stick a block between our thighs, narrow toward the pelvis. Okay. So as we lift up, you have to find like a new normal here with the block. So just find that for this first bridge. And then lower your pelvis down. Pay attention, observe for asymmetry, observe for weak links in the chain, observe for where your dominance lives. Try to not be judgmental, but just curious about what your body likes to do. You've developed patterns through your whole life. So let's figure out what those patterns are. Ground into the feet. Now we're going to lift the pelvis up. Actually, come back down for a second. Before we lift up, ground a little more deeply into your left foot. So just notice that left foot strongly. And then we'll lift on up. And we're going to straighten our right leg. Still hold, I have a piece of furniture right in the wrong place. So hug the block, straight leg, one-legged in the air, left foot on the ground. And then we'll lower down toward the ground. And now we'll do the same thing with the right leg. So root your right foot a little deeper into the ground. Feel those four corners. Hug the block. Inhale, lift to your bridge. And then we'll straighten the leg. And just notice when you do this one-sided, where is your strength coming from? Press the foot into the ground. Find that purchase. And then we'll lower down. Release the block and windshield wiper your knees. Whenever you do asymmetry, sometimes it's a nice place to notice how your patterns live in your body. All right, let's do a passive block bridge just to release the sacrum and the pelvis a little bit. So put a low block underneath your pelvis. And just relax here for a moment. You don't have to engage your glutes right now, but just feel your way into symmetry after we did some of that asymmetry. We're going to do a little more asymmetry in a moment, so just enjoy knitting yourself back into neutral. Notice your breath. How is your low back feeling? Did you strain at all in your low back in those bridges? Sometimes if I know my glutes turned off, I get a cramp in my low back or on one side of my paraspinal muscles. So maybe that happens to you if you're feeling a little discrepancy. Just notice what happens. Let's get that block out of there. Roll to your side, and we're going to come all the way up to stand. So back to our chair poses. Pay attention now into the breath. Notice the fullness just standing here in Tadasana of how our breath is moving. Feeling the pelvic floor, the low back, the whole low cylinder of your torso move while you breathe. All right, we're going to, I like to do this variation with my feet not quite hip width apart, but also not quite together. I have my feet about, I don't know, 2 inches apart, maybe 3. So you kind of find what's feeling good for you. We're going to do one-legged chairs through this. We'll start in a simple chair. Okay, so drop down in, reach the arms up, and notice your breathing. Notice where the support's coming from. Pelvic floor, core, glutes, legs. Try not to overburden the low back. Bring your hands to your heart. Bear some weight into your right foot and hover your left foot. Now, I know your quads are going to do a lot of the work here, but can you turn on your glutes on that right side? And then push to stand and lift that leg up. And we're going to lower back down, tap the toe, and then come back to that one-legged chair. And then push straight up, and then lower your foot down. So pay attention to how that felt on the right side. And as we move to the left, notice, if there's more strength, less strength, if you wobble more or less. Just kind of pay attention to where the weak links in your chains are. Let's find our way into a chair. Reach your arms up. Find your breath. And then we'll bring our hands down to our heart. Bear weight into your left foot and hover your right. See if you can engage your glutes and your core to help support this. It's not just about your quad. And then we'll push straight up, lift that knee. And then exhale, back down again, tap the toe. And then back to the one-legged chair. Recruit a lot. Glutes, core, inner thighs, pelvic floor, quads. There's everything sharing. Are you breathing? And stand up straight. Bring that knee up. And then put your foot down onto the ground. And pause here for a moment. So much of what we've done to strengthen the glutes today has been in the neutral plane. Okay. Now, we've done one-legged stuff, but our hips have been in a neutral plane. So now we're going to take wide legs and see what some wide squats feel like. So turn your toes out a little bit. Let's just warm up those inner thighs by a deep low squat. Hips in line with your knees. Open up your inner knees. Just get used to being in this position. And maybe your back feels good to lengthen and open here. And again, we're trying to take the main movers into our quads, and into our glutes and our quads, so that our low back isn't the prime mover. Okay, deep breath in. Let's bring our hands to our heart. We'll stay with our hands here instead of our normal movement of our goddess. Let's just be kind of quiet in the upper body so we can really focus on what our legs are doing. And we'll slowly come down to a squat and then slowly come up. Notice the 4 points of contact with your feet as you go with the breath. Notice if you tend to bear weight more in one leg versus the other. See if you can keep your knees tracking open over your feet. Keep your torso upright as you move. So it's a different action in the glutes when our legs are wider. Find your breath. And now we're going to go down and just stay for a little bit. So as you come into this posture, open up your feet, ground them, open up your knees, lift your heart. Try not to hold yourself by your low back. Hold yourself with your core and your pelvic floor and your glutes and your quads. Notice your breathing. Let the breath teach the low back to relax in this position. All right, now push as if you're trying to stand up, but we're not going to. And then we'll rise all the way up. Heel toe your feet in, back to neutral territory. All right, now let's move through vinyasa just for a moment. Take a deep breath in, reach the arms up to the sky. Exhale, fold, open up the glutes. A halfway lift, and relax. Just pause here in Uttanasana. All right, now, while you're here, imagine that you were going to pick up something heavy. What are you going to do? I'm going to take my feet just slightly wider. I'm going to drop down with my sit bones so my knees are bent. Engage your core. Engage your pelvic floor. Engage your glutes. Push the ground away. And imagine lifting yourself something heavy up and notice all this stability in your lower body supporting you. And then we'll put this heavy thing back down. So how's your low back feeling? Is your pelvic floor and your core and your breath helping you? Is your glutes doing the work? Are your feet grounded so that when you lift up and you lower down, you can sense that even though there's nothing actually heavy that you're lifting, that the prime movers are doing the work. Core, glutes, legs, pelvic floor, not the low back. Even the breath. All right. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, floating down. Maybe you want to do a dog pose. Maybe you're just ready to come down onto the ground. However you want to transition. You can move through a whole vinyasa if you'd like. We're going to find our way to the ground. Put your feet on the ground. And now just take a moment to feel your breath. To notice how the exhale impacts you, how the inhale impacts you. Notice the movement of your lumbar spine, the movement of your low back and your pelvis as you breathe. All right, grab a strap and put both legs in the strap. And we're going to just lift one straight up in the air. Okay. Maybe have a little flexing and pointing of the feet. Extend the spine. Opening up the glutes, opening up the hamstrings, opening up the back body. And you can pull your feet as far forward as you want. You can open up the back of the legs, or you can keep them right over your pelvis. Okay, release the strap, grab onto your feet, happy baby again. Rock a little if you'd like, just let the low back open up, letting the glutes open up. And then a simple twist, feet down, shift your hips over to the right, knees up and drop them left. Notice the breath. Feel free to straighten that top leg and hold your big toe if you'd like. Back to center, shift your hips over to the other side, knees up, drop them to the side and breathe. All right, come back to neutral and find Shavasana. However you'd like to support yourself. Maybe you want some support underneath your knees. Maybe you want to put your calves up on a chair or the couch. And let your body deeply relax into the floor. Once you get to the position that you want to be in, melt what you can. Let's begin to deepen our breathing. Taking your time to find some movement in your body. Eventually finding your way onto your side. Come on up to sit comfortably. Notice your breath when you get up there to a comfortable seat. Let your diaphragm breathe and move. And again, notice how your breath impacts any tension through your low back. See if you can just soften your way into your breathing. And we'll bring our hands together and offer an energy. Just give something towards someone, your love, your attention. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. It's a couple minutes after. Sorry, a little behind. Let's see.
Thank you, Jenny. That was